Hello and welcome to the Habits Podcast. Today we've got Lisa Slater from Make Your Copy Count that's going to share with us some of her good copy habits. Thanks for joining us, Lisa. And there'll be some people listening to this that wants to know what qualifies you to be our guest expert when it comes to copy.
Well, copywriting is about writing and selling, and I'm good at both those things. I've got over 20 years of experience in sales. I've been copywriting professionally now for over 6 years. I've written copy for hundreds of clients, from everything from toilet cubicles to marketing to how to gain ISO certification. I've also published a book on blogging and ran copywriting training to all different kinds of businesses, including teaching inmates how to write a blog.
So Lisa, tell us about some of the bad habits that you see people do when it comes to copy.
So probably the biggest bad habit that I see is what I like to call weeing on your clients. So it's where you go to a website and on the homepage it just says things like, we are professional, we are friendly, we love what we do, we are passionate about what we do, we have 20 years experience in what we do, so we, blah, 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 blah. And I find it really frustrating because if you went to a sales pitch, if you just turned up at a sales pitch, you wouldn't walk in and go, hi, I'm Lisa. I love copywriting. I'm really good at copywriting. I've got 6 years experience in copywriting, because the person that you were talking to would just think you're a weirdo. And yet so many people do it on their website. They talk about them. So I always say to people, stop weeing on your clients, make it about the reader, make it about them. So what you can do is ask a question of, are you struggling to find the right words for your website? Do you struggle to come up with ideas for your content? So ask them a question that they can say yes to, and they go, oh yeah, that's me, I can see that. Or even make as simple as turn it around from, we offer great customer service, to you can expect to receive great customer service, or you will get a really personal experience. So make it about the reader and not just about yourselves. I often say it's a bit like when you write your CV, instead of just writing about all your experience, write about the experience that is relevant to the job that you're going for. And it's the same with your website. Don't just write about all your experience, write about what's relevant to the person that you're trying to attract.
So weeing on your clients is a no-no. What other bad habits do you see often?
One of the things that annoys me most is that people will spend thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds on a new website. So they'll invest in the design of it and the build, and they'll make it look beautiful, and they'll get loads of great images, and they'll get the best web designers, and then they'll rush the copy. So they'll just put any old crap on there. They'll either try and do it themselves and they'll just talk about themselves, or they'll get someone junior within the company to write it who might be good at English but isn't a salesperson, so they don't know how to promote the benefits of what they're offering. So I always say to people, don't rush your copy. It's the most important part of your website, because it doesn't matter how fancy your website looks. If the copy on it is rubbish, then you're not going to convert any of those visitors into customers. So what's the point of spending thousands on it if you're just going to fill it with rubbish copy?
So copy being secondary is a massive problem then?
Yeah, I think people just don't put a lot of thought into it, because everyone can write, or at least everyone thinks they can write because you're taught at school, but not everyone can, because copy is about selling. And another thing that people do is fill it full of technical jargon. So they use all these terms that they use within their industry, or they use loads of acronyms, and they forget that the reader won't necessarily understand that jargon. They won't know what those acronyms are. So don't make it too technical. Keep it as simple as possible, rather than just filling it full of buzzwords and jargon and tech talk.
So that's some of the bad habits that you've seen. What are some of the good habits that you do that you're willing to share with the audience?
So one of the things that I say is, don't rush to get your copy out. So it's really easy, whether you've written your website copy or a blog post, you get excited about it, you think it's really good and you want to share it with the world. But I would say to people, just hold your horses a bit. And I break it down into 3 stages. So, and I do this with client copy or with my own blog posts. I'll write it, Then I'll leave it. I'll leave it at least overnight. If I can leave a week between writing and editing, even better. And then I'll go back to it and I'll edit it. And this is where you can see all the obvious mistakes that you've made. It's where you'll see where you've gone off at a tangent. It's where you've waffled a bit, and you can cut all that out and you can make it much better, much more concise and much more reader friendly. And then I leave it again, and then I go back to it and proofread it. And that's where you just find all those little typos, the stray apostrophes, commas in the wrong places, and that kind of thing. And then I have a 3-stage proofreading process, because that's hard to say. So the first stage is I manually proofread it, so I go through it myself. Then I use proofreading software, so I use Grammarly. That's just like a backup check, because it'll just pick out where you've maybe used the wrong, for example, if you've put you instead of your. And then I use the read aloud function. So if you've got the newer version of Word, then if you go into review, there's a read aloud function, and that will read your copy back to you. And that makes it really easy to spot where you need to break a sentence up, or if you have mistyped a word and haven't spotted it in your manual proofread. So I always say to people, don't rush your copy, leave it and take your time with it and make sure it's perfect, because the last thing you want to do is put out the best copy in the world and then someone starts commenting on how many typos are in it, or even worse, if you're sending it to print and it's full of typos and you have to then pay for it all to be printed again.
Well, I know I'm guilty of that. I rush my copy sometimes, and then I'm trying to edit it on the fly after it's gone out, especially if it's on LinkedIn. So that's really interesting that you say, write, let it settle for a bit, then do your first edits, and then do your proofread.
And so then once you've written your website copy, the next thing that you need to do is actually get people to your website, and that's where your content comes in. So that's why it's really good to keep adding blog posts regularly. So I've got a really good process that people can use, because a lot of people say to me, oh, well, I haven't got time to write a blog post, or it's just such a daunting task for people. So this is just a quick process that you can use that takes 1 hour a week, and you can have one great piece of content each month, whether that's a blog post for your website or an article for LinkedIn or a newsletter that you're sending out to your clients. So in week 1, that's where you do your planning. So you think about what you're going to write about, you maybe bullet point it, you maybe get links that you need that you're going to include, you maybe gather together any statistics that you want to include, do a bit of research, and that's what you do with your hour in week 1, and then you leave it. Week 2, you come back to it, and that's when you write your post. So you're not trying to make it perfect, you're just getting your ideas down on a page in a logical order, you're padding out those bullet points that you wrote in week 1, and you're making something that makes sense, and then you leave it again. And then week 3, you use your hour to edit. So that's where you come back to it and you cut the waffle, you take all the jargon out, you make sure that you've covered everything that you want to cover, and you get rid of any obvious mistakes, and then you leave it again. And then week 4, that's where you perfect it, proofread it and publish it. So that's where you would do your proofreading. You would get an image if you're going to use images in your post, and then you format it. So if you've done it in Word and you copy and paste it into your website or whatever, and you put your subheadings in and all your H1 tags and all that jazz, and then you publish it. And if you do that, if you set aside 1 hour a week, it can be the same hour each week, or it can be whenever you've got an hour, but schedule it into your diary and then follow that process, and you'll have one piece of great content every single month, and you'll start to build up some really good content and get people to your website.
So that's like a bite-sized approach to creating one bit of killer content per month.
Absolutely, and it just breaks the process down so that it's not such a daunting task of staring at a blank page and going, oh shit, I need to write a blog post and I've got no idea what I'm doing.
And one quick fire good habit that all our listeners could implement.
So once you've got your content, don't just put it as a blog post, take sentences out or paragraphs out and use them as short social media posts that you can then link back to the content.
So repurpose your good copy.
Absolutely.
So thanks, Lisa, for joining us in the Good Habits podcast and sharing some of your good habits with the listeners. Where could people find you if they wanted help with their copy?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Lisa Slater, or you can find my website at makeyourcopycount.com.
Thanks for joining us on the Habits podcast. If you've got any good copy habits you'd like to share with the rest of us, let us know in the usual places. And join us next time for some more good habits.